All right, we've officially entered the spoiler zone. Spoilers. This is good. This is good enough.
That's good, yeah.
So Inversion, I thought it was so cool when it's like, all right, what's happening when he first is learning about it? It's like, why is it going? Like, how can he control?
Okay. Listen. I'll be asking these questions, and you guys come up with the answers. Why are we going backwards? What is happening?
Okay, before we get there, I just wanted to say it made a lot more sense to me when there was actually the machine that you go into,
right?
Turn, you go out, and it's being inverted, and it's like, whoa.
I'm happy that's how they did it.
And they were physical stuff where you couldn't breathe, and it just like we were saying, the way it was shot and how he's moving backwards. Like everything around him's moving backwards.
He's moving, so he's moving forward, but everything else is
going backwards.
But in the timeline A, I guess he's moving backwards, and everything else is moving forwards. You know what I mean? So
yes.
And just when I just think the movie, to me, it was fun. I was having a great time. My mind was being pulled in 7 different directions. But when he finally was like, no, I'm going in and I'm going backwards and I'm going to go do this, that's when it took off for me. I'm like, yes.
That's about an hour and 50. It's about
it was
the movie.
Building to get to that moment.
And then when they get there, that's when everything starts making sense.
Yeah.
And that shit, how they filmed it, he had to film everything in reverse.
Did he? Okay.
And if you watch, he had to blink in reverse. He had to throw stuff in reverse. He stepped. So
the step,
Brandon Davis, the Brandalorian from comicbook.com, had an interview with him, and I watched it because I knew that. I mean, I saw the trailer. I was like, stuff's going backwards. I got to know how that's made. And he's like, oh, no, I had to learn that entire thing. I had to learn fights backwards and forwards.
One fight. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Which, I mean, are we
spoilers?
Or
we're in spoiler territory. Let's go.
He fights himself. That was so cool.
And I picked up on that at some point along, like way before that happened. I was like, oh, he fought himself.
But I'll tell you, okay, so I didn't pick up on that. And when it happened, it was so rewarding.
Yeah.
It was so rewarding.
Rewarding film. This movie is a rewarding film.
You're
following along.
You're like, okay, so what does this mean? And then everything gets answered.
Yes.
So good.
Which is rare for Nolan.
Completely. And there's still some loose ends. So, okay, here's the Jasmine crazy.
Are there loose ends?
Yeah, exactly. It's going like this, and you can just kind of it's wherever you want.
Yeah.
What was it? The Twilight at Dusk or something? I need a new Tenet.
I forget what it was.
Something like that,
yeah. Here's the theory that Jasmine had midway through. She goes, I think it was right when that kind of stuff was happening. Quick aside before I get to this. It was during the scene when she looked at me. Remember when they were going, when what's her name was shot in reverse, the inversion shot?
Yeah.
That was gnarly. But second, if you remember in that scene when Robert Pattinson and John David Washington are talking back and forth, when the camera would cut, it would cut and they would be in like slightly different locations. And in my head, I'm like, this is him like look like kind of giving us a look at like multiple universes going in the same timeline.
I don't.
I think the multiple cuts was from two sides of the.
Stay with me. They're in the little confinement area. I think they're traveling.
The chamber that leads to the door, right?
They're in the inversion.
Okay.
What's the character's name? Elizabeth.
Cat.
Cat is laying down. She's like asleep. They knocked her out. That's after Robert Pattinson like injected her and said, "Hey, you need to sleep."
Okay.
And they're just kind of talking back and forth, and they're just driving along, and they're like,
"Oh, this is when they were in the container."
Oh my god!
And they're just
right.
And I think it's supposed to be for the most people. Oh, time is passing, but it was the same conversation happening. So it wasn't like time was passing. They were moving locations. The same conversation is happening, And when they would cut the camera, maybe I thought too much into this, but I'm pretty sure when the camera would like cut, they'd be in slightly different like positions or like locations, but they'd be continuing the same conversation. And it wasn't like they had moved. It was like we were seeing multiple timelines happening at the same time, and it was showing like the strands of like how reality can be slightly different.
Okay.
I mean,
That's brilliant. 'Cause I noticed that they were in different locations, but I thought it was just time was passing because I wasn't
Exactly.
thinking too
Right,
much.
right,
I was
same.
focused on the dialogue of what they were talking about.
what they
'Cause
were
I
having
wanted to know.
conversation. Like they weren't
And-
just like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I didn't think about it until you mentioned that. You're right. That's how many times have I said the F word on this one today?
Yeah, that's a good. That was a good observation, David.
I really want to go back and watch it and see if I'm like, maybe that was what they were actually doing. Because in the moment, I'm like, wait, it's not exactly the story they're telling, actually, but it seemed like they were kind of nodding at that, where there is these multiple things. So here's the theory. Here's the theory that Jasmine came up with. She said during that scene, she leans over and whispers, so maybe I was distracted. She's like, I bet Robert Pattinson is her son. He's the little boy. That's what Jasmine said. And he's been going in time. And he's like from way in the future as her son. And she's like, I bet that's what they'll reveal at the end. They didn't, but it's still up for interpretation. And I was like,
I was
actually kind of upset in my head. I'm like,
Damn, Jasmine, that's a better film.
listen, whoever is watching this right now, if it isn't written yet, Jasmine called it. You should write it now.
Tips.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good. And what's funny though is actually in the theater, I'm like, did you just ruin the ending for me?
No, but the ending was so rewarding too. Yeah,
the whole battle scene of them going in reverse and being at the same time.
I loved the actor who played like the missionary. He was Quicksilver.
Was that Aaron Taylor Johnson?
It is Aaron Taylor
Johnson. I loved that scene with him briefing the team. So cool.
Yeah, the briefing in one's in the inversion and one's not.
Him explaining exactly how everything is going to go on. Like we were a part of that team. That was cool. I appreciated that.
And then it's I love the part when someone's asking them some question. It's like it's need to know, and you don't need to know. Spicy.
Yeah,
that's how you keep the timelines intact.
Yeah, it was so cool opening up where it really was like everyone gets it, or it's like holy crap, that's what this movie is about. Where it's like you have to just be ready for everything in your timeline to be like, oh, I have to do this later, or I have to do this now. Like with Robert Pattinson at the end, where like the protagonist knows he is going to die, but he's like, "Oh, it's fine. Like I have to go do that because that was me." So like I have these like time jumpers. It's like you have to just be ready and do your part. You can't.
What happened. What happened happened.
And we get and the protagonist, we get hit at the end. You know how he's been the guy.
And he's learning this, and it's funny enough, it definitely needs a rewatch because funny enough, as it goes along, he's learning as well. And whenever Robert Pattinson said that what happens happened, so cool.
Exactly, that's exactly the line. Yeah, what happened happened, and that's the whole point of the movie. And that's click.
Like I'll tell you one part that really like I knew that I'm fully into it when they got that little like the truck scene, I should say, and Robert Pattinson is following in the BMW behind. Anyway, so the protagonist jumps in the seat, but from the moment you first see the BMW, you notice the mirror is busted. I noticed that, like,
it's like shot.
Why is that? And then it happens. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
See, I picked up on that. There's another part just like that earlier in the movie. Oh, it's when he first fights himself, and you see the bullet holes. And I'm like, oh, okay, because it was the same. Well, I mean, they telegraph it in the very opening scene when he's seeing the bullet hole, and he's like, "What the hell?" And then it slowly builds up, and then he backs away, and it shoots out and shoots someone behind him. That I noticed at that point, I was like, "Oh, okay, so it's already happened, and it happens in reverse." So I started picking up, looking for those little clues, and that's what led me to recognizing that he was going to be fighting himself. What I did not anticipate was him. Well, I didn't anticipate it until he went into the machine. And then I was like, oh, he's literally there in 3 places at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why, because I noticed that he ripped his mask off and then he didn't do anything. He ran away and stopped him. And I was like, okay.
And that was the thing where
I was thinking it was himself at first. And then as we got deeper in, I'm like, oh my God, no, that's going to be him.
Dude, he's the one. When he fights himself, oh my gosh, it's so cool. It's so cool. And like it being in reverse. And okay, this is the thing about this film that I think is so worth a rewatch is because you're going through it and you're watching a movie typically and you watch it and what's happened, it's in the past now. 45 minutes ago, that happened a while ago. We're still moving forward. This movie, it goes to a point and then it comes back.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap, this is so cool.
Just that fight scene with him fighting himself.
Just going back to the airport scene was, I thought, awesome. Yeah, because there's so much to dive into during the airport scene. The first time, the second time, it's awesome.
The way, actually thinking about it now, the way that fight scene was shot in terms of what they chose to focus on and how they chose to show certain things, him picking up the gun, him like crawling backwards.
Yeah.
When you look at it, when he goes back to it now, oh.
Yeah. It's so cool. One other thing, so speaking of the inversion is, one of the best scenes to me is, through explaining it and actually understanding it and seeing how cool it looks on screen. I mean, that's part of the reason Nolan wanted to do this is just how insanely awesome it could look on screen. And and just what they can do with cinematography is when they're in that room where it's two-sided and one side's going forward and one side's going backwards and there's a machine and we see it all. So we see the full scene of the bad guy, I forget his name. Also, great bad guy. He was really good.
Sator. Played by Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh, it makes a great bad guy. I thought he was scary. Yeah.
I really, really like that character. Even though he had a bit of a man-child syndrome type stuff. If I can have you, no one can have you. Yeah. But I really like this character.
Me too.
I loved how he said he's going to torture him by slitting his throat and cutting his balls off and shoving his balls in his neck, just because it's hilarious to watch a man try and pull balls out of throat before choking.
I thought it was his bones, not his balls.
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 Oh.
Balls. Yeah. I was like, he's savage.
I literally thought it was balls.
I instantly put that in my brain and was like, I'm gonna have to do something like that in a film one day.
But anyway, back to that scene. There's the scene where Sabat has Cat, right? Cat.
Mm-hmm.
See the names in the movie.
Well, which scene?
That's the thing.
He has her multiple times, bro.
No, I'm gonna explain. No.
So bad for her.
I know, right? When they have her when it's in that room and when we first walk in and we're in the protagonist's point of view and it's him holding her behind the plexiglass.
Yes.
Right.
And we're getting it. It's like in reverse there and then forward on our side. It was awesome to me, and it was something that makes this movie 2.5 hours. They show that full scene twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bold move in today's world where you literally show a scene twice, but it was just one way. It was exactly what it was, and it was just so cool to see. And I thought that was something that lasted like 10 minutes, but was so worth it. And I think it was a bold choice by Nolan, and I just wanted to give him a shout out to that.
What I found really interesting about that scene is when it came to the dialogue. I couldn't understand shit over that.
Same.
I think it was in reverse.
I was about to say a lot of that audio and dialogue was in reverse.
And they knew what they were saying. So they had a full-on conversation while the other was speaking.
And we didn't know.
Yeah. Because he goes through it and it's like, you gave him everything. And I'm like, did he give him everything? I don't actually know. And then you find out he's in the bloody BMW driving backwards, and so they both see it. Like I was like, oh, he's got a leg up on him, and then he saw him, and I was like, shit, no, he doesn't.
I just have to shout out again. Him going out with the breath thing and starting to go backwards is the best moment in the movie, in my opinion.
And if you watch closely,
the superhero moment.
It's
Yeah.
It really is. And
I'm
if you
doing
watch
this.
closely-
I'm going out and being in the danger. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you watch closely, you can tell that it's he shot it
Yeah.
in
It
reverse.
seems like it. Yeah.
Because like
So
how
that
he
first thing with the
steps-
footstep into the puddle, you know that's in that's
Yeah.
in reverse. Yeah.
and how he moves is enough. But the way that it works in story is that you feel like you're. What did they say? You're swimming. You're walking upstream.
Yeah. You're swimming
Basically,
upstream.
Yeah. Everything
And
is
so-
yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's a great little piece of dialogue to be like, oh, that's why it's not smooth.
Oh
And-
yeah.
And it works out
Right.
very well.
Even with
And
him
so then when
driving, you know, he was warned about the driving. He asked
Yeah.
The
about
driving was
it. He comes
scary.
to the car, he's like, well, I don't know what to do.
yeah. and of course, probably the best part of that whole thing is setting someone on fire is actually freezing them, and freezing them is setting them on fire because everything's inverted.
Because, you know, and I love the idea of it wasn't just like time manipulation, it was actual physics at play. It was the reverse of physics. So if things get hotter, then you're gonna feel it get colder in the reverse.
Really interesting. That kind of pushed it for me. I'm like, wait, what?
Well,
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I like it because there's already a theory in science that our reality is paralleled specifically with an inverted reality. So everything that you see and you feel and you do is the opposite. So, example, we live in what is called space-time, and in that reality, time it's time-space. So we traverse space at a rate of time. There, you traverse time at a rate of space, and that is essentially what they do. Slightly different because time is moving whether they're moving or not. But
The direction they move in time.
exactly,
You can just stream backwards.
exactly.
Mhm.
So it's a slight difference, slightly different play on it. But you know, in the theory in not the Nolan film, the idea is that if you go east, you're going into the future, and if you go west, you're going into the past, and if you go north, you're doing something super weird. I don't remember what it is. And if you go south, you're doing the opposite of that. And
Yeah.
it's just
Right.
And I like
wild.
that it was an actual machine to do this. You had to go into a machine,
Yes.
stuff into a machine for it to be changed.
That I think was key because I think for anyone going in there, that's what I was saying earlier with it being a physical, scientific like thing, like in Interstellar, where it feels like it's actually kind of grounded in some sort of reality where there's science being told to you. That's like, oh, this is technology, this is science. Like Thomas was just saying, it's something like it's a theory, but in this movie, it's real. So it makes it feel like, hey, we're not watching some fantasy sci-fi flick. We're watching something, an action movie that is taking crazy risks and using these theories as reality. And I think seeing a physical machine, seeing a scientist being like working on this stuff and studying it helps see like that sort of thing. It's not just, hey, we all hold hands and say 3 magic words and now we're going backwards. So you know what I mean? Like I thought it was so cool to see a physical machine and how, a lot of movies, just how incredibly valuable this is and how it's so important that he does this and how it's kind of a silly trope in this film. The stakes is just the whole world's gonna explode.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, I'm like, really? That's what we're going with?
That's
Nolan?
the best you got.
But, I mean, one
That's the
question
same
I do
thing in Bill and Ted 3.
One question I do have is, who is the protagonist's boss?
Yeah.
Himself? Or was it that gentleman we saw after he woke up in the beginning?
That's a damn good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because he was the
Because-
one to say, Tenet will get you open the right doors and open the wrong doors or whatever.
That guy's like a wise man or something.
Who was he? Who was he? And how was he related to the protagonist?
I think everything that organization was created by the protagonist. So whether the protagonist is still alive, which I don't think he is, the old version at least,
Yeah, like the future version.
the future version, I don't think he's alive anymore. But he went back in time to set this up specifically to get to that point where they do stop it, because you can't have loose ends. I think there might be one loose end, but I'll ask your guys' opinion in a minute because I don't remember the actual fallout of that scene.
Okay.
And so in terms of who his boss is whoever is in charge in that moment. Whether he is there in that reality going forward in time as an old man, or not. I don't believe so, because doesn't Neil mention that he died? Neil mentions that he met him at a much older age and they had a lot of adventures together.
I don't know if I caught he died. That was an emotional moment.
Well, that I think that's what we should really dive into. What Neil was trying to explain. But before we get into that, there's one thing that they mentioned that I really, really enjoyed was the grandfather paradox.
Yes.
That we were talking about, David, where maybe multiple realities. In that scene, Neil is laying on the gurney, and he's like, "That's the deal with the grandfather paradox. So what if I go back in time and kill myself? Would I then be alive? We don't know. It's a paradox."
Yeah, exactly. That's what and paradoxes are fun because of that. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's basically the going. They toy with the idea in the same way that they toyed with it in Interstellar of going into a black hole. What happens? Yeah. But in Interstellar, they went back and did it. And I think that's where people got upset. So in this movie, instead of doing it, he's like, we'll just throw the idea in your face and be like, it was all a red herring.
It's funny going into this movie. I didn't know they were going to dive so far into the inversion and it being, in all honesty, it's a time traveling movie. It is. Simple way of putting it. Like I think Nolan would maybe take offense with that, but that's what it is. I mean, you could compare it to you could literally take the logic of Back to the Future and compare it to Nolan, and compare it to Tenet. If you wanted to, you could compare it to Endgame. There was Endgame moments in this movie that
Bill and Ted.
Instead of going, it's funny. Tenet, weird to compare it to Endgame, but because of time traveling, you kind of have to at this point. And it's funny because in Endgame, we're going back to scenes that happened years ago here. 2020 or 2012's Avengers. In Tenet, we're doing that, but it's like a slingshot, like it's like a boomerang. We went so far and we came back, and we're getting the same sort of feeling and emotions I got watching Endgame a bit, where we're just I don't know how neat it is to see something play back to you from a different perspective. In this way, first, okay, quick thing. There was one gripe I kind of got. They didn't explain this part. Jasmine was like, "What?" So he's going backwards now. He's going in inversion. He's going backwards. And then and it's like, hey, you can't breathe. Need the thing. A bunch is happening. He's talking to the arms dealer woman, who's not actually an arms dealer, right? Yes. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. And it's like he's talking to her because so now it's getting confusing with the timelines. He's talking to her before he talked to her in the first.
Yeah, they haven't. So when they had that conversation, they didn't meet yet.
Or no, they had met, but they hadn't talked from an earlier scene. It was like the second time you see them talk, I think. Right? See, this is where it gets difficult.
See, that scene was a little bit. The way they broke that dialogue down was a bit confusing because she definitely spoke to him in his first. We're going to follow John David Washington, the protagonist's timeline as we follow.
Yes.
So he had already spoken to her to get the the nuclear bomb, which turns out to be the thing. I'm calling it a football because
right.
It's easier.
Yeah.
And then he says not to do that, and she says, "Well, what's happened? And he goes, "No." So you knew I was going to lose it, and she's like, "Well, no," or something. And then I got confused at the end of that because it just went to a place, and then it instantly cut away really fast, and I don't remember I don't remember the resolution of that scene, which I didn't remember until you brought it up. Yeah. And then I don't remember the resolution of breaking apart the contraption at the end and what the fudge happens.
So, wait, what do you mean the conclusion? They basically are like, we can't see each other ever again.
Yeah, I thought it was like, what are they going to do with the thing?
Just hide them.
Yeah, hide it. That was the main purpose, just to get
it's taking the lock away from the lock and the key.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only loose thread in the film. Anybody can find that.
Yeah, but it's like each the three of them, whatever, they have it in some capacity, and it's like they can't see each other ever again because if they do, they have to kill each other.
Right.
Kill the other because you can't it's the whole. Well, at that point, it's because just the knowledge at that point is just that is enough to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you would never tell, You could get your teeth pulled out at the beginning. All these things.
So now,
Which
because,
does happen.
so because that key is taken away, is the inversion still possible?
Yes.
Oh, he's doing it. That's the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, the end. Yeah.
He inverts.
No.
Further.
The thing getting that's the doomsday.
The football.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the thing that's going to end the
The
world.
end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, so the inversion's still very much
Right.
out there. There's the machines, there's all these different things they can do that with, and we're seeing trained soldiers in the inversion. It's not like
Yes,
it's not
they're
foreign.
like time soldiers.
You really, I think there's going to be a fanfic. I'm sure there's already something on Reddit. What I would want to see is this sort of technology being used more readily, and like how it is in like 40 years, and seeing like it just being like this back and forth, and I don't know. It's such a fun sandbox Nolan made, and we just want to play in it more. I think is the big takeaway by going to see it again, but also he's not going to make a sequel. I highly doubt it, but that'd be awesome.
I need it. It's
no
the
way he
only.
makes
Like
Yeah.
I wanted a sequel to Inception, but this one, because
This one more so.
the football still exists.
Right.
All you need is one person to travel back in time and interrogate the person and somehow pull the knowledge. Now, obviously, the key is that you won't reveal the knowledge, which is why at the beginning he's only accepted into it after he dies and tries to kill himself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if somebody knows that's a thing and they try to kill themselves, they could. The whole point with the inversion is that you can stop something and do it different,
Right.
theoretically.
Yeah.
And so that's what they try to do.
It's like righting wrongs. That's the whole that's where in my head, of course, you know me, Thomas. I'm like, hey, Back to the Future. It's like, hey, literally, it's hey, we have this machine. Let's go fix and make things right. And also the end of Back to the Future 3. Emily's here. Hey, Emily.
Hey, Emily.
The ending is also like, hey, what was the line, Kev? Whatever happens, happened.
Whatever happens, happened.
And that's a destiny kind of thing. And that's what we get Back to the Future 3, where it's like, hey, your future isn't made yet. Do what you want. And it's, I don't know. I don't know if I love this movie. I did, but it's like I want to see it more.
I love it. What's wrong with you?
I don't know.
The reason I want a sequel is that last conversation between Neil and the protagonist.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see
that.
how they met. I want to see what they get into.
We're never going to see it.
Yeah.
Because then you do have a weird possibility
Sorry,
of
Jeff.
Denzel coming in. I mean, he probably wouldn't, but Denzel could come in and do a little bit of stuff here
That
and
would
there
be
if that's the case. And it would be amazing because, whatever happens, happened. Well, they hid the thing, right?
Mhm.
Well, in the future, it still gets made.
Right. That's the thing. That's the thing.
So
All
they can
that
get
stuff
sent back
hasn't
at a different
happened
time.
yet.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's where the sequel could come in. And because it exists now, maybe it was made super far in the future, and then someone finds out about it in the less far future and then comes back in time to try and get it. And that's how we get, because they talk about all the adventures they had. Maybe they had adventures trying to destroy it in another
That was incredibly emotional, and it shouldn't have been as emotional as it was.
Right.
Like, it's like, holy crap.
Like,
They had this whole history.
Character.
And that's about the only part that confused me, because Neil is in group B, inverted. Then he goes to red, regular verted. Then he goes back to invert.
Which is in the middle of the mission. He switches.
Doesn't he do? He does that 3 times.
Well,
Doesn't he?
by the end, it's 3. Yeah. Well, by the end, it's 3 because he's going back again.
He's no. He was blue, then
blue.
red, then blue, but then he came back to red. At the end, I think, again, I'm telling you, this is the only part that confused me.
I thought he just did it twice.
Yeah, same.
I thought he did it 3 times.
I thought he literally went, so he goes from blue, and then he goes to red, and then we get the whole scene with him talking about how they had a whole past and stuff, and then when he knows he dies, he goes back to blue.
See, no, I think he goes to blue again.
Wait, at the end, when they were talking, were they in blue or red?
They were in red. which is why I'm thinking it happened 3 times.
All right, let's go see this movie right now.
Yeah,
Let's
I just gotta say, before we continue, I just gotta say that first interaction with Patterson, with Neil and the protagonist. I know you. It's my job to know everything about you. And then it's like, no, he's known him basically his whole life.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's the kid. He's
it
Cat's
is-
kid.
Yeah, it's that is a effing strong possibility. So I don't know when Kat was mentioning like that girl, and she was jealous that she was seemed so free.
She was the girl. Bro.
She was the
What?
As soon as they went inverted, and they were like, "Well, we have to do this." I'm like, "Oh, she's the fucking girl." Like I knew about that when I realized that John, the protagonist, was gonna fight himself. I was like, "Oh, she's the girl that jumps off the boat."
I hate that I realized it too soon. I hate that I realized it. I wanted that emotional feeling of being, oh, that's her.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it. I was like, oh,
really?
Jasmine. Whoa!
I'm too. See, I'm too much of a detective when I go see, especially Nolan films. I'm always trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah,
that is why most often I don't watch trailers because I figure it out. I have enough information to go A, B, C, D, and I picked up so early that once you see something, it is important.
Yeah.
And that's going to come back later on. And then once about halfway through the movie, I do believe it was, I was like, oh, I know the whole ending now.
I will say one thing, like you guys was like, oh, I don't love it. Or like, so I was like, how don't you love it? I would say the reason I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is as good as Inception or any like Dark Knight, like any other great Nolan film, is just that watching it, I think after my second viewing, I'll be like, yeah, this is up there. Mm-hmm. But the first time watching it, I had to be sitting there so like honed in and being like, what the heck's going on? And there's the moments where you can't really hear, so it's a little frustrating.
It'll get better as you watch it.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. I mean, I did love it. Because the payoffs I loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for that.
And I enjoyed the pace, and I enjoyed the technology, and the creativity of this movie is off the charts. It makes sense Nolan wanted this movie just to be out in the world because he's like, everyone's going to talk about it when it's out. And it's such a cool flick to see in theaters that it's like, please put it out. But yeah, that would be why I was like kind of hesitant to be like, best movie ever, just because I think first time viewing it, the payoffs I loved. They're the best part. But
it's a very rewarding film.
Yeah, exactly. But the build sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm almost like sitting here sweating. Which I know is a bad thing.
I want to rewatch it is I just want to caught what I missed.
Same.
I just want to caught what I missed.
Yeah, exactly.
I have questions about the beginning of the film. Is the protagonist there? Like, as soon as the movie ended, all I could think was, is he in this scene? Like,
when?
Like the opening scene when you're at the Russian opera.
The opera, yeah.
Right.
All I could think when the movie ended was he in there somewhere?
Oh, like was there another one of him?
Was there another one of him?
Yeah.
Was anyone going in? Oh yeah, because there was the shot backwards, so there was some inverted people there.
There was the bullet going backwards. Yeah, so there was
near him. So did he do that?
Right.
Like, because that was really the starting point of
did he do that? But
just to tease him. He did
that.
Exactly.
Right.
Like
so,
he went back and did that to cue him up.
Oh, and then what about this?
It's one loop. It's one big loop, man.
No. What about this? What if we see two of him and we don't notice it? We don't realize, but it's actually two of them.
That's what Thomas is saying. Yeah.
No, but like, yeah, okay. But like,
you mean his
actually
face?
Seeing him, yeah. Like we're going through and we think it's just the one we're watching, but it turns out that it wasn't the whole time. I don't know. Maybe. I think that this kind of goes along with that theory.
The thing about it, you can practically imagine any concept you have in this movie, I think it will be true.
Yeah. That's what's so fun about Nolan films.
Is it the IMAX poster that has 4 of him?
No way.
In different, like, so over on the one over here, the little Tenet, it's that, but it's bigger. And it's not even having him faced in 2 different ways. It's one up top, one up here, one over here, one over there, and one over there.
Yeah.
Like, there's 4 of them. And Tenet's like slightly skewed. I think it's the poster that I used. Go look at my did I post that? On my Instagram. I posted the IMAX one. I think that has 4 different ones of him.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about it, there is a scene where there's 3 of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
Yes.
yeah. I would say that this movie is one that is like I started this whole review. It moves so fast for a
Mhm.
2.5 hour movie. And you have to be paying attention. There's no pee breaks. There's no nothing. You
There's
have
No,
to be
yeah, exactly.
no pee breaks.
honed in, and it's because they tell like kind of the movie twice in some spots, just one way going in one direction and one way the other, and they have to explain so much. It's incredible that we got so much explanation that made some sort of sense, and that was you could follow it and you cared about it, and that there was emotional stakes in the game.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
2 huge things in this movie that they had to nail, along with all the other, I would guess more kind of filmmaking stuff, like how incredibly cool it looks and the sound design and the score, but also just saying, hey, we actually care about these characters and we have to explain this brand new concept to most people and have it make some sense. And by the 1:30 mark, you have to understand it and be ready to roll. And they do a great job of that. I think that was probably like when Nolan was probably like writing it out. He's probably like, all right, at 1:15, 1:30, we gotta go start going backwards. And we have to nail it. We have to, at that point, like a goal probably was just to say, hey, at that point, people have to understand enough to be able to do that. Because if they did it earlier in the movie, we'd be like, what the heck is happening?
Big facts. Big facts. Yeah, it felt earned when we got to that point when he first goes inverted. It's like, okay, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to learn how things work. And then you actually do.
Mhm.
Like, you learn more by watching what happens
A lot of
than
visual
listening.
cues. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're talking about how we get explanations. A lot of the reviews I've seen that like hate on it are saying we don't get an explanation of what's going on, and they're the same damn people who get mad when someone gives them an explanation, and they completely miss the whole. Like, do they explain exactly scientifically how the inversion process works?
Right.
No. Why is that even important? Honestly, it's not. Then you'd have a 15-minute scene of dialogue trying to explain the science and the physics.
Right.
Nobody fracking wants that shit.
Yeah.
They did that in Interstellar, and everyone bitched. So pop off it, you know.
But I will say they did it. I thought they did a good job of it, and we get those moments with the protagonist where he's like, "What?" And you're like, "Okay, that's us right now. Thank you." So it's not like, "Oh, well, got it."
Yeah.
No, there's those perspective moments where we are him, like we're following his journey, and it's like, okay, we don't. Those moments, I think that's what helped me enjoy it more, especially in the first hour and a half.
Yeah, there was nothing that he knew that the audience didn't.
Exactly.
I don't have to know this yet, or like it's okay if that made no sense, or if I can understand Michael Caine talking.
And I think that was a good choice. That was a really good choice to have the audience learn as the protagonist learns.
Yeah,
and that's not something that we normally get.
Exactly.
Anymore.
No.
I very much, and especially because to a lot of people, this is going to be the first time they ever see John David Washington. Like, David's like, I've never seen anything of him.
Bro.
I want to slap him in the face for it.
You've never seen
Ballers?
not Ballers, the
Black Klansman?
yes, Black Klansman.
Yeah, I watched Black Klansman only because I'd watched Ballers for the first 3 or 4 seasons. And he's in Ballers, dude. Him and The Rock are bros in Ballers. He plays Ricky Jarrett. 100% different than the character you see on this movie.
Really?
Oh,
I gotta check it out.
Think of stereotypical wide receiver that has emotional problems and is really erratic in their behavior. That's him.
Totally different. Yeah.
Goes to the Patriots to try and win a Super Bowl, pisses someone off, and I think he gets cut.
Okay.
Like,
Antonio Brown.
Oh, no, he's better than Antonio Brown. He is better than Antonio Brown.
By the way, Kevin has no idea what we're talking about when it comes to football, so I hope he enjoyed that.
I don't. I know who Antonio Brown is.
Yeah, well,
bad.
he's big. Probably for not the right reasons. Probably not because he's an unbelievable football player, but
because he's a shitty person. I said it.
Yeah.
I said it.
Anyway.
Yeah, so should everyone go see this movie if they're not going to die?
Yes.
If you're still watching at this point, I'd hope you've already seen the movie.
Yeah, no, seriously, Terry.
Maybe don't see it if you're still watching.
It's a good watch. It's definitely Tenet is one of those movies that you're gonna maybe next 20 years we're gonna still be talking about. Oh, Tenet. Oh, it's gonna be
I think it's gonna be considered a cult classic.
Yeah.
Because it's not for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
The people it's for, they're gonna be like.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's one of those movies where either you hate it or you love it.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't even think that. I think it's either.
People might not get it. People are just gonna be like,
Yeah.
What was? Yeah. What was that?
Like unlike Inception, where they're like, "Oh my God, what's the ending?" And again, I'm that guy. I know what the ending is. On the first watch, I paid attention. I picked apart the scenes. It never wobbles. Not once when they're in the dream world, and it wobbles at the end.
Yeah.
That's enough. There's physics for you. I've been barking up this hill and dying on this mountain.
Hashtag it did not wobble.
For 10 years. So in this movie, it's more of just like, yeah, I know. Everyone's like, oh, I don't understand the ending. I'm like, did you even watch the fucking movie, bro? But for Tenet, it's like I loved it. And when I walked out, I was like, I had this weird mix of, there was a weird center emotion of like, I don't actually think I know how I feel about it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like there's something about it.
And I think that feeling is there, and I think it's designed to be there to pull you back in and see it again.
I want to see it so much again. Yeah.
Same. I'm driving all day Wednesday, but if I drive fast, I might go see it on my way home.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably try to see it again this week. I think I will.
So
just
jealous.
for people that are watching this again, I think I'm actually gonna post this part of the spoiler section on YouTube as its own whatever it's been 30-minute chunk. So anyone wants to see a spoiler, hey, I wasn't tuning in live because I hadn't seen Tenet yet. They can come back and watch this later, and hopefully you're watching this right now on YouTube and enjoyed our spoiler conversation. So hey,
maybe
we're in multiple timelines. Whoa.
Whoa. Speaking of, David, I need you to watch Bill and Ted 3.
Okay.
Because if you don't cry, you have no heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's not going to watch it.
I know he's not. Kevin. I bought all 3 movies, and then I watched the third one yesterday and cried so hard.
He's going to be too busy playing Avengers, and then tomorrow, I got stuff to do, man.
I'm not watching it tonight.
Whoa, Kevin. Whoa. When I get home, I'm going to be playing Avengers, boy.
Yeah, bro.
Can't freaking wait.
Hey, Kevin, are you getting the game?
Are you getting the game?
No.
You son of a bitch. Why?
David, you know this. The only video game I play, the only video game I play is Forza.
You are literally my brother, and I hate them. I do not understand. I do not understand the craze with car people that Forza is like this holy text of a video game. I think it's a bad video game.
It's a escape from reality, bro.
It's a bad.
In reality, I cannot afford the cars.
That's okay. That's very fair. That's what I do in GTA. I get the cars that I could never afford. But do you play Need for Speed?
No,
I'm telling you, Thomas, it's these guys that are like cars, everything cars. The realism, blah blah blah. It's not a fun game. Give me Mario Kart all day. Mario Kart. So that ends our spoilers.
Wait, no. David, one thing you got to watch is The Boys, though.
I will. No, I totally will. I'm hyped for that.
I'm looking forward to
it's been
LP episode and listening to what you guys say about it.
Oh my god, bro! Ladies and gents, seriously, The Boys is
back in town.
Explosive, David. I feel bad for you because I've dropped so many F-bombs that you have to edit out of the audio podcast. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna be hitting this.
I just gotta say one thing, and Thomas, I hope you get this. I cannot drink milk the same way ever again. I'm done.
Oh boy.
Every time that pops back up after that 1 second section, you just see it on their face. And it's like you nasty.
They did not need to film that the way they did.
Oh man, it was, and just with Okay, my favorite part is David. Get your sensor ready. Is I fucking hate you. When he dropped that line, I was like, oh shit, and the reaction from her. I'm keeping this as generic as I can for you, David. From her was a non-reaction. I was like, okay. Just man, and I have a feeling that we're gonna have so many more people die in season 2.
I bet.
On the super side, I think a lot of supers are gonna die in this. Just because of how it was framed season 1 and season 2, how they seem to be slightly juxtaposed, but only slightly, but it seems to be that's the move. Also, shout out Giancarlo Esposito, scares the shit out of me in everything he does. I'm so excited for Mandalorian because he kills everything. David, I'm going to spoil something for you. He has some scenes with Homelander, and it's like, Homelander's not winning this. There's no way Homelander wins.
That scene you're talking about, Thomas, gave me goosebumps. I was like, "This is what I needed. I needed that to be said to him."
Yes, and that's because it's Giancarlo Esposito, and that's why he has 2 Emmy noms. One for they're both for supporting character, I think. No, one's a guest spot.
So I have an update. My PS4 is not turning on because it's kind of broken. So if it doesn't turn on tonight, I will probably watch The Boys.
How are we going to watch The Boys? We have done it. You have done well, Sony PlayStation 4. You have joined the dark side.
So that concludes our Tenet spoiler movie review. What an episode this has been.